Speaking of the Raiders once again, the Raiders have not won a playoff game in over 2 decades. They continue to be behind the 8 ball. Because as I mentioned, how do you go from Derek Carr to Jimmy Garoppolo? You downgraded. Derek Carr is a better quarterback than Jimmy Garoppolo. If you're going to move off of Derek Carr, at least try to get a star quarterback. Maybe give Aaron Rodgers a phone call. Maybe try to trade up in the draft and actually select a star quarterback and get him on a rookie deal and start building this thing up. But the thing is, the Raiders, they settled. They settled for average, and they moved on from good, and they pivoted to average. And Jimmy Garoppolo, I'm even giving Jimmy Garoppolo some respect because he's won games. I think he's a decent passer, but there's nothing special about Jimmy Garoppolo. And you are in a division with Patrick Mahomes, and you're selling me Jimmy Garoppolo? That's an iPhone 15 versus an iPhone 3, people. And let me tell you something right now. That iPhone 3, it don't got much around it either. What I mean by that is, when have the last time the Raiders gotten it right at head coach? Josh McDaniels? Hugh Jackson? Dennis Allen? These are the guys you tried to sell to this franchise? John Gruden? John Gruden at one point was in the TV business as a broadcaster, and they just all of a sudden out of nowhere bring him in and think he's going to turn back into this great head coach. I didn't really like that move initially, and it just didn't make that much sense to me. I rooted for John Gruden. I felt that he had a chance to do some things with the Raiders, but it was a bad gamble looking back on history. And 5 of the last 8 first-round selections for the Raiders, let's read them off. Garyon Conley, Jonathan Abram, Clelin Ferrell, Damon Arnett, and Henry Ruggs. Those guys have contributed very little to the Raiders' success. And all those guys are not even on their team anymore. So more than half of the Raiders' last 8 first-round picks, they've whiffed. And it's really a shame because my brother is a Raiders fan, a diehard Raiders fan at that. And it seems like the Raiders have just such a great fan base, and the management of the Raiders just continues to get things wrong. They can't seem to get the quarterback right. They can't ever seem to get the head coach right. They don't draft particularly well, at least compared to their contemporaries. And right now, with Patrick Mahomes running that division, the Raiders, to me, are in no man's land. They're not going anywhere, and it's a darn shame because they once were a historic franchise, but right now, today, the Raiders are behind the 8 ball, and the Las Vegas Raiders continue to make baffling decisions, and they continue to make the wrong decisions, and it's very unfortunate, especially for their loyal fan base.